You Teams?
No, on Teams, yeah. Are you recording on Teams?
Streaming. Should I still
record?
Okay.
So record first.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Adv Nkebe, Director of Communications for this division. I would like to thank everyone present for honoring our media invite. On behalf of the NPA, I welcome you all. Present in this gathering, we have a newly appointed Director of Public Prosecutions, Adv Nkebe Kanyane, and her management team who will be part of the panelists during the question and answer session. Amongst them is Advocate Nkebe Kanyane, who is the Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions and the main seat. We have Mr. Sonja Nduli, the Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions in the local seat. Present in this room, we have Ms. Gabi Namalapane, who is the Head for Specialized Commercial Crimes Unit. We have Advocate Maria Spanier-Bierden, the Chief Prosecutor for Nelspruit Cluster. Present also in this room are the senior public prosecutors from various clusters in the division. Ladies and gentlemen, the purpose of this engagement is about the performance of the division for the past financial year, the progress in capacitating the division, the establishment of various specialized units. We'll also give a brief highlight of some of the successes in the current financial year. On that note, please allow me to hand over the program to the Director of Public Prosecutions to set the tone for today's gathering and address us. Over to you, DPP.
Thank you, Monica. Residents of Mpumalanga, members of the media, management team of the NPA, good morning, Sanbonani. To account to the public, the National Prosecuting Authority in the Mpumalanga Division would like to update the community of Mpumalanga and all our strategic stakeholders in the province on the province performance and developments aimed at improving efficiency. The Mpumalanga Division consists of 3 clusters, namely Mbombela, Middleburg, and Malahleni, where the bulk of prosecutions happen. The Mpumalanga Division has identified 3 crime categories, namely sexual offences, commercial crimes, and corruption as the crime focus areas for the lower courts and the high courts. Murder, with specific reference to intimate femicide, has been identified as a focus area for the higher courts. The recent recruitment drive has addressed the high vacancy rate that we had in the division. Prosecutors and support staff have been innovative in their operational management, and doing more with less has become the motto. In the past, the division did not have critical specialized capacity, such as the Specialized Commercial Crimes Unit, the SCCU, the Specialized Tax Unit, the STU, and Organized Crime Components. We have, however, made strides in that regard, and we continue to recruit and build capacity in these units. We now have a fully fledged asset forfeiture unit to ensure that we take away the process of crime, ensuring that crime does not pay. The regional head of asset forfeiture unit was appointed earlier this year. However, even before these appointments, the existing staff in the division had been handling matters in these streams as and when the cases were reported to the office. With regards to the SSCU, it started operating back in 2019 with a skeleton staff. And the regional head present here today has continued to build it from scratch to where it is now. And currently, we have 9 permanent staff members. Like with the rest of the country, the division was impacted with the COVID-19 pandemic. Courts were occasionally closed for deep cleaning, and court officials were also absent from work during isolation periods. Prisoners were not brought to court if there were cases of COVID-19 incidents in the prison, and many cases were postponed as a result. So this impacted on our work. In addition to this, there were other challenges that affected the smooth functioning of the courts. In many district courts had to close before the actual closing time for issues such as water shortages and load shedding. In places where there isn't a backup, when there is load shedding, the courts has to adjourn, and this resulted in many cases being postponed. The regional management team and the chief prosecutors have been stalwarts in this effort, backed up by an experienced team of deputy directors of public prosecution and senior prosecutors. So the achievement of this region is even more remarkable when you view it against all these challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic and the economic outlook of the country. Notwithstanding the above challenges, it was the prosecutors on the ground that ensured that when circumstances permitted, the court would still proceed and be in session. And the division was able, in the past financial year, to achieve many of its performance indicators, despite all of these challenges that I've mentioned above. In the high courts and in the regional court and also in the district court, our targets that we had placed for ourselves were achieved. The division has 2 community prosecution sites. One is at White River, and the other one is at Emelo. The site in Emelo is dedicated with dealing with stock theft cases and related violations. The site at White River focuses on gender-based violence, often induced by drug and alcohol abuse. In addition, the division has 6 Tutuzela care centers, which are based in hospitals in Emelo, Evander, Witbank, Tonga, Temba, and Nelspruit. These centers have contributed positively in increasing the conviction rate in rape cases. Now I'm going to zoom in a little more on the performance of the financial year of the past financial year. The conviction rate achieved in the High Court and the regional courts are as follows. In the High Court, we're able to have a conviction rate of 93.1%. And this translates to 81 cases out of 87 cases that were heard in the High Court that came out with a verdict of guilty. And in the regional courts, we're able to bring out a conviction rate of 77.5%. This is 852 total cases where we got a conviction out of 1,099 cases that were heard in that year. The percentage of accused persons in the in the High Court who were sentenced to direct imprisonment were 71%. So these are not cases where people are given suspended sentences or fines. It's people who are actually sent to prison in the regional court and in the High Court. That's 71%. The conviction rate in murder, it's 75.9%. The total number of cases of murder prosecutions now where we're able to get guilty convictions is 195 out of 257. Now, out of these murders, we measure also the conviction rate of intimate partner femicide. This is when a woman is killed by a intimate partner. This could be an ex-husband, a husband, or somebody they're cohabitating with. we achieved 100% conviction rate on this on this target. So this shows that the division takes very seriously the scourge that we have as a country and as a division, and we want to ensure that our division gives specific priority focus on these type of cases to send a strong message that the criminal justice system is there to serve and protect the women and vulnerable groups. Some of the key convictions we achieved at the various clusters include the following. The first category that I'll talk about is serious and violent crimes. Now, the Mpumalanga High Court sentenced Julius Tabiso Ndawe, who's 20 years old from Masoyi, to 5 lifetime imprisonment, in addition to also 25 years imprisonment for murder and defeating ends of justice. Ndawe was convicted for killing 5 women, aging between 15 and 24. He murdered these women and buried them and their bodies in shallow grave at his house in Numbi village near Masoyi. This happened between January 2018 and May 2019. These victims were all reported missing by their families. Again, the High Court in Mpumalanga sentenced Nompumelelo Posha Nkambuli, 37-year-old woman from Lowville in Barberton, to life imprisonment for murdering her ex-boyfriend's daughter, Philisiwe Nkosi. Again, sitting in the Mpumalanga High Court, sentenced Siyabonga Africa Mkachwa, who's 26-year-old from Barberton, to 5 life imprisonment and 16 years imprisonment on multiple counts of rape, robbery, and aggravating circumstances, and compelling someone to witness the rape. With regards to the within the district court, our conviction rate stands at 94.9%. This is where the bulk of the cases are heard. Our conviction rate is well in its 90s, 94%. Trio crimes, with regard to trio crimes, this relates to house robberies, business robberies, and car hijackings. These are the crimes where people feel most unsafe when they are victims of this crime. The conviction rate there in the trio crimes is 75%. There we were able to finalize 48 cases out of 64. With regards to gender-based violence, the conviction rate in sexual offenses, it stands at 70%. One of our key focus areas, the complex commercial crime and corruption, our conviction rate there stands at 25%. The number of government officials that were convicted, it's 26. The number of people convicted of corruption, it's 26. There's a further categorization where we categorize between government officials and private sector people who are not in government. 25 of those people convicted were in the private sector, and 1 was a government official. Our conviction rate in complex tax cases is 100%. The number of cases that were finalized with a verdict involving money laundering was 1 for the financial year. We have also quite a high number of cases in environmental crime cases, and our conviction rate here there stands at 96%. Property theft and essential infrastructure prosecution is also an important target that we look at. Our conviction rate at here it's 96.7%. We also have 100% conviction rate with regards to cable theft. So in cases where we prosecuted people for cable theft, which you can understand is very important, is 100% conviction rate. Now, this is the performance for our past financial year. I'll be touching a little bit about some of the key highlights and some of the cases that are currently in court and those that we have finalized in this financial year and not the previous one. With regards to environmental crime, we have quite a number of cases where the accused are being prosecuted for the prevention of, in terms of the Prevention of Organized Crime Act. We have the case of Mr. Nyalunga and 11 others who have been charged for rhino poaching, and another case of the state versus Mabuza and others, where the SAPS officials stationed at the Kruger National Park, the accused are SAPS officials and they're stationed at the park, at the Kruger National Park. They facilitated the entry into the park for poachers, and they've been charged for poaching and selling rhino horns. Some of the cases in this area include the case of Groenewald and Maqoboza. We are in the process here of applying for centralization of the cases in this regard. This is a project that the Organized Crime Division has been looking at, and it's specifically to address money laundering linked to wildlife trafficking. We have also other case involving 2 field rangers, also from Kruger National Park. They've been arrested on charges of corruption and money laundering. And the other case of State versus Nundu and 2 others, they've been arrested for possession of rhino horns. These are just cases that are still in court, but we do have other noteworthy convictions that have happened in this year. In this space, the case of State versus Mkombo, who was convicted of charges of trespassing, possession of prohibited firearm, hunting of a rhino, and possession of dangerous weapon. The accused was convicted and was sentenced to an effective 21 years in prison. And the other case of Stays versus Ndlovu, and another, the accused was convicted of trespassing, possession of prohibited firearm, hunting of 2 rhinos, possession of dangerous weapon, possession of an unlicensed firearm, and they were convicted and sentenced to an effective 38 years in prison. The State versus Khumalo, also in this space, they were charged with trespassing, possession of a dangerous weapon, possession of unlicensed firearm and ammunition. They were sentenced to a 15-year imprisonment term, effective 15-year imprisonment term. The case of Nkabela, the accused Nkabela and another, they were convicted of charges of illegal immigration, trespassing, hunting of a rhino, possession of a dangerous weapon, possession of unlicensed firearm, possession of unlicensed ammunition, and conspiracy to commit a crime, and they were sentenced to an effective 20 years imprisonment. The accused number 2 was sentenced to 19 years. Also within environmental crime, one of the noteworthy cases we've had in the division in this year is the case that relates to the Tabachwewu local municipality in Mashishing, where the municipality was charged, and this is one of the few cases where they were able to prosecute municipalities successfully for charges in terms of the National Environmental Management Act, the NEMA, for unauthorized disposal of waste, and for them failing to comply with conditions in the water license. And the residents there were very appreciative of the conviction because it affected their everyday life. Some reported how they were not able to enjoy just sitting outside their yard because of the stench that happened as a result of the unauthorized disposal and the raw and untreated sewer that happened. In that case, the state successfully prosecuted the case, and the accused was sentenced to 3 counts, and they were given a 10 million fine and another 5 million fine, part of which was suspended so that they can rehabilitate and rebuild and repair the water waste management plant. And this has really impacted the sentence has really been welcomed by the community and has given them a better and a safer environment to live in. The issue of illegal mining, currently a topical issue in the country. We also have, because of the mines we have in the province, have the issue of illegal mining, the so-called zamazamas. We in the Panes, we have finalized 45 cases of illegal mining, and 4 of these cases resulted in direct imprisonment. So at times we get the industry complaining that the sentences that are met out in court somewhat on the lenient side, but we have some cases where the accused were sentenced to direct imprisonment. Another noteworthy conviction in the division, it's the case of Pesi Lamama from Maganakubushwa in Siabuswa, where the Mpumalanga High Court here in Middelburg sentenced him to life imprisonment and an additional 48 years imprisonment for murder and 2 counts of robbery, aggravated circumstances, kidnapping, and possession of unlicensed firearm and possession of ammunition. He was given life imprisonment. And in the Skukuza Regional Court, Alsoni Baloyi was 50 years old, was found guilty and sentenced to 23 years of imprisonment for poaching-related offenses. Now, in terms of capacity, the aspirant prosecutor program has been revived in the division. This is where the NPA employs young graduates to enter into a program to become prosecutors, and they are trained for a specific period of time. The program has been revived, and it's hoped that it will expedite the filling of the vacant positions in our lower courts. And in addition to that, the division still continues to capacitate and to recruit competent and dedicated staff for the other specialized units that I referred to earlier. Now, in our prosecutorial decision-making process, we are guided by the evidentiary material that is placed before our prosecutors by law enforcement, and we do not target individuals contrary to what other people could believe. We are guided by the evidence that we have in front of us, and we will ensure that those who are most responsible for corruption and serious commercial crime are held accountable as we rebuild the rule of law. In conclusion, I'd like to thank my team in the division, the men and women who every day do this work, our strategic stakeholders in the criminal justice cluster, and the residents of Mpumalanga for their continued support. Together, we'll ensure that we strive to ensure that we deliver justice without fear, favor, and prejudice. Thank you.
Journalists who join online. I don't know whether we have questions from those journalists.
Nothing as yet. Share now. And from empowerment, contribution, conviction.
There is a hand. There is a hand on the.
Morning. Morning.
Monica, there is a hand.
Where is the hand? I can't see the hand.
No, on the electronic. Okay, I think she needs to be unmuted so she can ask, or he can ask the question. Dongile, can you assist?
Hi, Ntohaye, you can unmute yourself. No,
Morning.
you're not audible yet.
Morning. Am I audible? Morning.
Good morning.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, it's Ntohaye from News 24. First and foremost, congratulations on your appointment, DPP. I've got 1 or 2 questions, actually 2 questions. They are related to the Hillary Clinton matter. I would like to know the latest on the matter in court, firstly, and then secondly, the reaction on the NPA regarding Hillary Clinton's father, Godrich Kadi, where he alleges or claims that the king or the ruler of Swaziland is behind the killing of his daughter. Is the NPA aware of such, or is the NPA it's in part of its matter in court also looking into that matter? I thank you.
Thank you. It's Mr. Seleka, is it?
Yes.
I did not
Yes,
get your
yes.
first question. You said you asked something about a matter that is in court. So I'm going to ask you to repeat that question. I didn't quite get it. I don't know if my colleagues here were able to hear
Okay.
the first one.
Am I audible now? Can you hear me?
That's the second one.
No, second.
Can you hear me, Mekanyane?
Would you like to respond?
I think it's one on the first and the second.
The allegations regarding the other people who are said to be involved in the killing of Hilary Gadi is being investigated by the police. Some of the utterances were made in the media, so the police are aware of that, but the matter is with the police with regarding to following up all the leads that are there. I did not quite get the first question.
So sorry, Mekanyane, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can I rephrase my questions again? My first question is the latest proceedings on the Hilary Gadi matter. Can you hear me? Am I clear?
Yes.
That's the first question, Mekanyane, on the Hilary Gadi matter. And then the second question pertains to King Mswati, the leader or the ruler of Swaziland, where Godrich Gadi claimed or alleged that Mswati is involved in the murder of her daughter. That's the second question.
Okay, I'm going to hand my colleague to respond to your question.
Thank you, DPP. Morning, colleagues and members of the media. Insofar as the latest on the Hilary Gadi case, we have finalized the bail application of the first accused, and I'm sure all of you are aware that that bail was denied. We're still busy with the bail application in respect of accused 2 and 3. And the latest is that the matter is postponed until next week, Tuesday, for the continuation of the bail application. Thank you, DPP.
Thank you.
Okay, proceed. Do we have other questions?
Nothing else is coming up from our side.
Any
My hand
questions from
My hand
you
is up,
here?
DPP. My hand is up, DPP.
Then, in the absence of
I'm
other
sorry.
questions, can we ask
My hand is up.
Mr. Nkebe to close?
It seems Mr. Seleka still has another question.
Hi, Ntahaye.
Sorry.
Okay, I feel that can I continue with my question? Can I continue with my question?
We have a new hand.
Yes,
from
I'm
behind.
just asking.
Hello, am I audible?
There we go.
Yes, you are.
Can I feel that DPP, my question regarding the involvement of Kim Mswati was not answered, because what you said earlier was that the police are looking into other suspects. Are those suspects also involved Kim Mswati? Yes or no? If not, then can you specifically respond on the allegation by Hilary Gadi that the NPA and the police are not probing Kim Mswati's involvement in the murder of his daughter?
Okay, I think Mr. Seleka, you'll appreciate that it's the police responsibility to investigate the crime. I thought I'd responded to your question to say that they are aware and that the police are investigating from all the leads that they've received. Now, the NPA does not investigate cases. We prosecute matters. So perhaps the police would be better placed to respond to that. We do not investigate matters. we prosecute the cases in court. Thank you.
My follow-up question on the Hillary matter. I'm sorry if I turn this thing into a dialogue. My follow-up question on the Hillary matter, like as you have mentioned earlier about the possibility of some suspect who could be involved. How many people are you looking at into the matter in terms of your case that is in the hands of the NPA?
We currently have 3 accused that have been charged, where the NPA has made a decision to charge them. Those are the accused that we have charged. We have the police have not arrested any other accused. So these are the 3 that the NPA has evaluated their case and instituted cases against. We as I said, we don't have investigative powers. We're not investigating the matter. It's been investigated by the police. I think there's another hand in the room.
In terms of the state assessment we have done for others, for allegedly killing from Masoni, what are the latest updates and should the community expect or rather is there a possibility that they could identify?
The matter was in court yesterday. Or is it today? For bail application. Do you want to respond?
Yes, the matter is on the portal for today for the bail application. The DPP office has sent an advocate to represent the state. Unfortunately, as it's not the prosecutor that decides if the accused gets bail, that is for the magistrate to decide. But it's a bit early to ask such questions because we have just started today with the bail application, and there might be a few witnesses still to be led before we can come to that result.
Mr. Seleka has a question.
Oh, okay. Mr. Selena, go ahead, Baba.
He says I'm not audible.
Yes, you were. I could see that your lips were moving, but I couldn't hear what you even. I only heard part of what the person who just spoke. I didn't hear what she was trying to say. I'm sorry about that, but
So she was responding to a different question from another journalist.
yeah, but she was not audible. And then my other question pertaining the Hillary Kari matter. Since that the NPA is handling the matter and it has brought 3 persons before the court, are you confident or can you assure the Kari family that you will deliver a conviction that they demand?
Well, what I can say, Mr. Seleka, is that it's the presiding officer that will bring out the verdict. However, the state has sent one of its senior advocates to do the matter, and we're going to prosecute the matter with vigor and bring it everything. However, it's at the end the magistrate who then decides, after evaluating the evidence, whether or not the accused is guilty. However, we've really put our best foot forward in prosecuting this case. That's the assurance we can give the family, that we will give it our all. However, it's the court ultimately that must evaluate the evidence before it to see whether the accused are guilty or not. Mr. Seleka, your hand is still up, or is it up from the previous time?
No, it was for a previous, but I want to give others a chance to ask. If let me give others a chance to ask.
No, he still has a questions, but he doesn't want, he says he's giving other people a chance to ask if there are other questions.
Any other questions from other media houses?
Seems not. Mr. Slicker, it seems you have another shot.
Yeah, back
you can ask your question.
I'm kind of interested in the Hillary Kari matter because it's one of those cases that has a political influence. We all know that the EFF pressurized the police to make arrest and for the matter to be handled in court. Now, the question is, does the NPA ever feel being pressured? Because we always see them in court. I was there when they were there and present in court. Is the NPA ever feel pressured by the presence of the EFF in court, or is the NPA doing what it's supposed to be doing with or without hindrance from the political party?
Okay, so you would have heard from the address earlier that we really have a problem with these kind of cases in the division, these type of cases in the division. And gender-based violence is one of those areas where, as I mentioned, it's a key focus area, and we really want to ensure that we deal with this scourge. Now, there are a lot of cases that have media attention, that different parties have an interest in, but our job is our job is to handle cases without fear, favor, or prejudice. And as I said to you, that we've put senior people to prosecute this matter, and I can assure you that the presence of political parties and other people who have interest in the matter does not influence how we do our work. So the simple answer is no.
Thank you.
With the question and answer section now.
And this brings to the end of our meeting. Then I will ask Mr. Nkebe to do the closure for us.
Thank you, Monica. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And again, on behalf of the Director of Public Prosecutions, Advocate Kanyane, the manager present here, I want to say thank you for making yourself available. Thank you for making yourself available to attend the DPP Speaks series. This is the first of its kind in this province, but it is informed by the fact that the NPA has taken a bold step to interact with the communities where it works according to our various provinces. So this will not be the end of it. It will be continuing. Please feel free to inquire from time to time when we have queries about cases that have been reported to the NPA. We'll respond to those questions through our communication spokesperson, Ms. Monica Newson. In the near future, every 3 months, we'll be holding another similar session like this. So we'll give you, it will be better. I invite you to send us questions so that we can investigate those issues and be able to report to you in full. Once more, thank you to those colleagues who have traveled out of far away from Nelspruit. Travel safely on your return to your respective destinations. Thank you.